Hello people, I have another video for you today. Now, I decided that maybe you don't want to look at my ugly face in the beginning for this video only, so I'm gonna just skip that intro bit and just show you the thing we're talking about today, which is this. Now, this baby is the CM Storm Trigger mechanical keyboard. A lot of you have seen my Razer Black Widow Ultimate in my other videos. Now that was 2 years old because I bought it just when it came out. So I decided, hey, it's time for a change, time to try something different. Now, before you watch this video, maybe a good idea for you to go down in the comments box, no comments box. God, I'm slow today. Oh my God. The description box, yes, that's what I'm looking for. Description box, and I'll link you guys to an explanation about the different types of mechanical keys for those of you who don't know that. Now, before you go there, this keyboard, this particular version of the trigger uses the Cherry MX black keys. Now, the Black Widow used to use the blue switches. You can get this one in black, blue, brown, I think, and red. I'm not talking about color, okay? Not color. Talking about mechanical switch types. Each of them are different. I'm not gonna go through explaining what each of them are because it's gonna take me forever. Just go to the link I'll put in the description. Check that out because I'm gonna be talking a bit about that in the review. So let's talk about this keyboard first of all. First thing you see is this huge thing here, this huge armrest. Now I have to say that personally, I was not a fan of this type of palm rest in the past. I felt that most of them were just added on. Like they would design the keyboard itself and then they would say, hey, let's put a fucking palm rest on it. And they would just slap some stupid shit on there. Now on this one, Cooler Master has done things differently. Just gonna show you. Now, let me see if I can do this. Yeah, something like that. Now, when you put it on a desk with the 2 feet up, it actually forms a uniform angle all the way from the top, the most high point, all the way to the bottom. So if you actually remove this bit, you can see that the keyboard itself is actually quite thick. So you have a thick area where the back of your palm will actually hit this area right here. And it's not the most comfortable thing. Sure, you can do it if you want, but personally I find that they've really thought out the design of the palm rest in order to fit in with the entire keyboard. Now, if you put the feet down, the angle changes a bit, so I think this is how it's intended to be used, with the feet up, with the palm rest on. I think that's, the best way to use it. Now, you may have noticed it's switched off. I'm gonna explain why in a bit, which we'll get to that point. Right, check different angle. Ooh. Many of you may remember I complained about the Black Widow on one big aspect, the finish. Sure, it looked brilliant with a shiny black finish on it, but after 2 years of heavy use, that was full of scratches. It weren't deep scratches or anything like that. The surface was just full of scratches. That's one thing I didn't like about it. Now with this one, Cooler Master has achieved one of the best finishes on a keyboard that you can have. Everything you see, everything is matte. It's not a rough matte, it's a very soft matte. It's a very soft material to the touch. I mean, it's not unpleasant to the touch, but it's matte. So everything, dust, food, drinks, whatever you get on it, it's not gonna show up as badly as it would if it were a shiny surface. Okay, now I'm gonna just try and bring this up close. I don't know if you guys can see, this is basically the finish on the keyboard. Right, so this is the main area of the keyboard, the one that you're probably most interested in. I'm not gonna go over stupid specs because you guys can see that on Cooler Master's site. So they've employed this function and F key layout, which personally I like a lot. I think it's something that people should put on all their keyboards, because you don't have to have separate media keys on the top. You can just use the F ones. thing I like, this switch right here, which was the Windows key, is a Storm key, I think, and so is this one over here. Now in the software, which is very good, I might say, you can program this to be a Windows key if you need a Windows key, but right now it doesn't do anything, you just press it. What you can do with this one, you know, you can turn off the lights. Oh, magic. Right? And all the other things like pause, stop, forward. Oh, my hand's not big enough. That's no problem. Just switch to this one and use this one. I mean, they both do the same thing. And the fact they've put one right here in order for you to be able to use, you know, the volume and that. So I find myself using this one and all these keys right here, you know, with my left hand, and I use this one and the volume and mute keys with my right hand. And I think that's, you know, a very good implementation. Also, down the side over here, 5 macro keys. You can program this to anything you want, anything you can dream of. Personally, I like, you know, this layout of having just, you know, a bunch of macro keys on the side, you know, close to the rest of the keyboard, with this divider area between them, because if you're gaming and you want to hit tab, you're not going to actually hit the macro key or get something like that, because you can feel the gap between them. Very good thing this. I'm not a fan of keyboards with 30 macro keys, because I don't play MMOs and stuff like that, so I don't need 30 macro keys. I think this number 5 macro keys is perfect. You can see the illuminated CM Storm logo over here. Another funny thing you can do, yeah, with the Storm and F4, you can switch modes. It has pulsating. So it has a mode that lights up WSD, this one, and the arrow keys, which nobody uses, and, you know, just regular illuminated. This one turns down the brightness, and this one turns up the brightness. So, you know, it's a very good implementation. Now, what I'm gonna do before showing you the rest of the keyboard, I'm gonna type a bit on it. Now, keep in mind the microphone I'm using is about 15 centimeters away from the keyboard. So let me just type something. Right, so that's the noise it makes. Now keep in mind, the noise you get from Cherry MX Blacks and the feel you get from Cherry MX Blacks is very different than other mechanical keys. Personally, if I would say that for typing, just for typing, I prefer the Cherry MX Blues, because they have that mechanical clang to them, you know, and the blue you only have to press halfway almost, and it's actuated, whereas these, you don't have, you know, that you don't feel when the key is actuated, you have to press all the way down. Now, what I think this is very good for is shooters. Personally, you know, playing a shooter where you're just, you know, pressing the D fast or smashing W and the S, I think that's very good for this, because you can just smash the keys and it works really great. At every key when you press it, whether if you smash it like this, or if you press it, you know, softly, it has such a strong feeling. I mean, it's not like, you know, other keyboards, when you smash a key, you can feel the entire keyboard moving, you know, bending or stuff like that. These are just rock solid. I love keys like this, you know, because I can do that to it without any worry. I'm not worrying because I'm damaging it. Sure, I don't recommend doing that all the time, but, you know, everything seems just so well made, so responsive. Now, moving on to the well-made bit, I'm going to show you something. I think this is one of the best made keyboards I've ever used, or I might say actually ever made. I mean, it's rock solid. You can see, and I've shown you that it's very thick actually, you know, especially the back here, it's very thick. Let me just show you the back of it for a bit. You can see that the palm rest has this honeycomb. Now this honeycomb actually gives the palm rest some rigidity. You can see, you know, big rubber feet, and these are big and they're actually quite thick for rubber feet, so the keyboard doesn't move anywhere. You can also see the design over here, you know, the design on the top with these ridges. Now you might say that that's just for show, you know, and it has a similar design over here, but this type of design actually gives the keyboard structural rigidity. I mean, when I try to do this to it. It's so solid. I mean, it's almost like it's made of metal, not plastic. And again, you know, it's quite thick. Now, let me just do this. I'm gonna grab my phone because that's all I have on hand. This is a Galaxy S Plus. It's an older phone, right? And you can see how thick the keyboard is in the back. I mean, look at that. Look at it. Okay then. Now, let me just try remove the palm rest a bit so I can show you guys. I remember, yeah. You know, this is how the keyboard looks, you know, without the palm rest. You can actually see, you know, what I told you guys. It's actually quite high, so I find my hand rubbing, you know, this part of my hand on this ridge. Now, keep in mind, even if I would do this in other keyboards, they might have a sharp edge here, and it might, you know, become, you know, tiresome after a while. But Cooler Master has thought of this. They might say, okay, people don't want to use palm rest, some of them. So this area over here, this material is actually very soft, and it doesn't have a ridge. It's actually, you know, shaped a bit rounded. I'm not gonna be able to show you guys that. I think it's actually a bit rounded. So even if you have to rub your hand against it all day, it's still not gonna, you know, not gonna hurt your hand even after prolonged sessions. So, you know, they've put really a lot of thought into it. And also this design right here. Some people play car games still on keyboards, and one thing that people like to do, I've seen some people do this, grab their keyboard like this when they're playing car games. Now, Cooler Master has even done that, you know, by making the keyboard smaller in this area. And also the colors they've used, this silver grayish color and the black, it's so scratch resistant and it's so dirt resistant. So in terms of user friendliness, I would say that this is probably one of the best keyboards I've used. Sure, it's as flashy, or it doesn't catch your eye maybe as much as the Black Widow did, but it still looks very good. It's very you know, down to business, serious thing. Let's move on to the two things I do not like. One's a fairly small thing, the other one's a big thing. You guys can see over here, the shift key is not so large. The one on the left is a big one. That's cool. But they've implemented this huge enter, and they've shortened the shift key to make room for this key down here. Now, I prefer this key to be up here, you know, and to have the question mark right next to the shift, because I would used to do shift question mark with my right hand. That's how I type, right? So I would used to have a big shift and then a question mark. Now what I find myself doing is shift and this key. And that's a bit annoying. Now I'm trying to get used to it. And in the past, like for a month, I think. Yeah, I've owned it for a month now. I still quite haven't got used to shift and then the second key. I'm still using this one. That's, you know, maybe a preference thing. Now we're gonna move on to the big problem, which I think is something that is completely retarded, if you ask me. You see me pull out the cable of the keyboard. It's this micro USB cable, or whatever it's called, and it goes here, right? That's the type of cable you'd see on camera or a video camera or something like that, or any other device that uses, a mobile device that uses this type of data cable. Personally, I cannot imagine why they did this. Now, I'm going to talk about the negatives first, and then I'm going to talk about maybe some of the positives of this. These cables are not secured. They're not like, you know, VGA or DVI cables that have screws, or like display ports which have those metal clips. You just put them in there, and I find that these connections are actually quite fragile. If you would pull your keyboard along the table a lot, I would actually, you know, see this cable popping out very easily. What we've been used to, you know, during all these years, we've seen people implementing USB ports on keyboards. The problem is that when you have multiple USB ports, right, running off a single USB running to the PC, well then all these ports are not gonna get the power they need, and also all of them are gonna share the bandwidth. So if you were to plug, let's say, 2 external hard drives into these ports right here, well, that's a recipe for disaster. Let's just leave it at that. What Cooler Master has done is they've given you a DC 5 volt in adapter port, just port, so you could plug in your USB data and you could plug in a DC 5 volt, power plug, and then these two key ports would be powered, but they would be powered with just, electricity. The bandwidth, the USB bandwidth, would still be shared off of a single USB port. So that, again, from the start, that's retarded to me. What we've seen people do in the past, our companies, is have, if let's just imagine that they didn't have this detachable cable. They would have just solid cable going in. Companies have done is they've just given you another USB, and on the end of the keyboard, which goes into the PC, they have two USB ports. One of them is for powering the keyboard and for the data from the keyboard, and the other one is just a USB pass-through. So that USB is going to be fully powered, and it's going to have the full USB 2.0 bandwidth. So you could plug mice, external hard drives, absolutely anything into that USB 2.0 hub, and it would be just as good if you would have plugged it into the PC. Okay? So let's imagine, with this keyboard, best world scenario, you plug it into the PC, you give it 5 volt power. Again, you're still not going to be able to use external hard drives in it or stuff like that. You may, and I say may, be able to get away with using just a mouse or something like that. And the retardedness goes even further. This DC 5 volt adapter, they don't supply it with the keyboard. You have to buy it separately. Given that this is probably the most expensive keyboard CM Store makes, I can't imagine a single reason in this world why they wouldn't give you this small DC 5 volt. And the disadvantage of actually having this two cable malarkey is that it makes up a lot of cable mess on your desk, because you have two cables from your keyboard instead of just one thicker one. You have two separate ones which you have to route separately, and even if you do this, you're still not gonna be able to actually have full speed USB on any of these secondary ports. And I think that's a terrible, absolutely terrible approach, and I can't imagine why they did this. Just make, if they wanted to, let's say they really wanted to have this detachable port, and there are advantages to that, I'll talk about in a bit. Just give us a USB cable, just give us a USB pass-through or something like that. I don't know, it's just so cheap and simple rather than having to buy a DC 5 volt adapter. Right, good things about this. What I think they wanted to do is they would say, hey, look, you buy a keyboard and it just doesn't have just a USB pass-through. It actually has a USB hub. Well, what the fuck? Who uses USB hubs in a gaming keyboard? I mean, if I would, let's say I'd have USB headphones. If you would plug your mouse and your headphones in here, you're done. That's it. You're just done. I mean, it's never gonna work. A good thing about this layout, in fact, there are about two good things about this layout. They've positioned these ones on the top of the keyboard, right? This is the right side of the keyboard because I'm holding upside down to show you guys. Most keyboards would have the USB plug here. In my Black Widow, it was right here, right next to where I would use my mouse. So I couldn't really use it, because I couldn't plug my external hard drive or a USB stick because my mouse would hit it all the time. So the position of this in the back is good, okay? Also, the detachable thing, if you had to carry this keyboard around, most of the keyboards that have the cable embedded in them have an external, large, hard plastic area which you can't really bend. So, that might get damaged, you might rip it off if you, jam it in a suitcase or something like that. So having this detachable makes it much easier to transport. Right, guys, so I'm just gonna plug it back in. And you can see that it turns itself on fairly quickly. So, what I think about it. As a gaming keyboard, it's probably one of the best made. Cooler Master really thought out the design of the keyboard itself, right? So everything from layout, comfort, build quality, key feedback, rigidity, anything like that, functionality, everything is really good about it, right? So they really show you that they've talked to gamers, they've listened to what gamers want and need. They know that people are gonna abuse these. That's why they make them so strong. But so as a gaming device, it's perfect, almost perfect. The only downside is the retarded USB hub thing right here, and the fact that they didn't give us a long shift. But you know, the thing about long shift, I can glance over that. You know, that's just a personal preference of mine. It's not really a downside of the keyboard. The retarded USB hub is a downside of the keyboard. So if somebody would ask me to compare how this keyboard would stack up against my Black Widow Ultimate. Now remember, I had the Black Widow Ultimate first generation, not the 2013. For typing, I prefer the Black Widow Ultimate because I prefer the Cherry MX Blue keys. But you can get this keyboard with Cherry MX Blues. So, you know, if you would compare blue to blue, you know, the Black Widow wouldn't have an advantage. It would be the same thing. In terms of day-to-day use, I prefer this one because it is so much more forgiving than the Black Widow. You don't have to clean it every week like I had to do with the Black Widow. You don't have to worry so much about scratching it. In terms of build quality, I would say that they're both probably the same. The Black Widow was very well made. It was very solid, just like this one is. Also, because of the detachable cable, this one would be maybe a bit easier to carry around than the Black Widow was. One thing that this doesn't have, and some people use those things, I personally don't, are those audio and headphone jacks on the top or on the side. Rather than the stupid USB hub malarkey, I'll prefer to have seen some of those headphone and microphone jacks. But overall, you know, I'm really happy with it. It's a very good gaming keyboard. If you want to read more about specifications on it, because you guys have seen I don't talk about specifications in my video, you can read those on Cooler Masters or CM Storm's site, right? So after the first month of use, I have no problems with it in terms of functionality. It's great. If problems pop up in the future, you can be sure I'll inform you guys. So I guess that was it. See you guys.